Hello and welcome. This beautiful specimen here is a Getzen Deluxe slide trumpet that has been very kindly sent in to me by a viewer named Keith, so thank you very much. And in this video we are going to give a bit of a demonstration of this instrument and a bit of a discussion of it, because although there are some interesting stories online, I'm not sure exactly how many of them are true and how many of them are folklore. Now, this instrument, as I said, is a slide trumpet. It differs from the instrument that we are probably more familiar with, being the soprano trombone, which is simply just a trombone that has been shrunk. This is an actual slide trumpet. Now, I did a video in 2014 showing the differences between slide trumpets and soprano trombones, and I will be doing a follow-up now that I have a slide trumpet. So this one, as I said, was made by Getzen. It was made apparently somewhere in the 1950s-ish. At one point they sold for $19.50. And there is a rumour online that these were something of a novelty instrument, a padding instrument that was made in the factory during the sort of off-season. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but a padding instrument is sort of makes sense when you see some of the workmanship that's gone into this instrument. This is an inexpensively made instrument. It might have been made by very talented craftsmen, but some of the manufacturing techniques that they used here, perhaps not as premium as some of the other products that they made. For instance, the joins between some of these sections here, normally you would have two pieces of metal that are butted up against each other and you would have a ring around them. They would all be soft soldered together. So you would normally do it. In this case, what they've done is taken the end of the bell section, expanded that tubing and fit it over the tubing that goes here and then soft soldered that in place. It's a easy and inexpensive way to do a join, but it introduces a bit of stress on the metal and it doesn't look particularly beautiful. So they've done that here, they've done that here. The connection between the end of this tube and the bell here, this is two separate pieces, there's a seam that runs around here, appears to be the same sort of construction, although the overlapping amount is quite small. The brace that they have here is the exact same brace that Getzen used for a time on their standard tenor trombones, and we have a little handle for the slide to be held, because obviously the tubing of the slide very close together. This appears to be simply just a tuning slide off a different instrument, and again we have that crimped arrangement for the crook of the slide here. The rest of the instrument, the connection between the slide section and the bell section is just a friction fitting. Again, we have this part that's been expanded slightly to fit. So, that's a very inexpensive manufacturing technique that's been used quite extensively on this instrument in lieu of anything more complicated or costly. Continuing that trend, this one has a slide lock, but this slide lock is just a simple piece of metal that's friction fit on this tubing here, and it has a little catch that you can actually remove that whole assembly if you wanted. But the part that this connects with on the slide, instead of where there is a block of metal that has been soldered on for the slide lock to engage with, what they've done on the slide trumpet is take the end of this tube, get a hook of some description and just bend a bit back. So it isn't a separate piece of metal, it is actually just part of the slide that has been deformed deliberately to make a lip, which again is the most inexpensive way that you could possibly conceive of to do that. One of the interesting things that this slide has is a bunch of notches on it which give you some indication of alignment. So on a trombone, for those of you who may not know, there is you use the bell as a bit of a landmark. If you're playing on third position, the brace that you hold is usually roughly in alignment with the bell. Fourth position, awfully the ends of the tubing here aligns with the bell. So it gives you a bit of a landmark to aim for. With the slide trumpet, because of how long this bell end is, you don't have that same landmark to aim for. And to help with that, the creators have kind of helpfully put these little notches periodically down the length of the slide. And these notches, when you're sitting at this position playing, you can see them. And the thought is that you align those notches with the bell. The obvious limitation with this, though, is that when you're playing the instrument, you're quite at a strange angle. In fact, you're pretty much 90 degrees to this. So the best angle to judge whether you're aligned is looking at this way, but obviously you're not going to be playing it whilst holding it sideways. So that is something that to be aware of. The other thing is that it presupposes that you've got the fitting between the bell section and the slide section in as tight as possible. There isn't a tuning mechanism on the bell. The way that you tune this instrument, assuming that you're playing it in a context where you actually care about tuning, is that you friction fit these two pieces together. I don't think this is a brilliant way of doing things, just generally, because metal on metal, every time you take it apart, you're introducing mechanical wear that's going to eventually make this connection a bit sloppy. But how we tighten these two is that we put these parts together and you sort of ram them home. The position indicators on the slide only align with the bell for first position if you have this rammed in as tight as possible. So, that's something that I think is an oversight. You should never have an instrument that is in tune when things are rammed together as tight as possible, because that means that you haven't got the opportunity to sharpen the instrument. Instruments tend to be made a little bit sharp out of the factory so that you can flatten them, and if you're using a strange mouthpiece or you happen to play naturally sharp, naturally flat, there is room to compensate for that. As far as playing this thing is concerned, it plays and feels very similar to the soprano trombone. It uses a trumpet mouthpiece, although quite a small bore trumpet mouthpiece. But there isn't any easy way to hold this. With the soprano trombone, you can sort of hold it quite similar to a normal trombone because of the way that the instrument is orientated. You can't do that with the slide trumpet. However, we can take some inspiration for the instruction manual that came with the instrument, the play at sight method, specifically for this family of instruments. And on one of the pages, on top of the beautiful description, how to blow, there is a picture of a person playing this, and they just appear to be holding the instrument like that. Which isn't particularly an elegant way of doing it, but because of the way that the slide is, there's not really any way to sort of hold it normally. If you try to wrap your thumb around this brace here, it's just going to interfere with the slide, the operation of the slide. So you are sort of really forced to hold it in this position. Anyway, we've had enough ados, so let's hear some notes.